Hey ladies and gentlemen, in this video I'm going to be explaining what it's like being 5'11.2, which is very close to 6 feet tall even if not exactly, and what effect it can have on your life. I'm still growing and it's likely I'm going to be taller than 6 feet tall in the future. We all know that being 6 feet tall has a lot of advantages. Like you can reach high places like the back of the cupboard that's sometimes above your microwave or oven with ease. And you can easily reach things like even an object in the gutter of your house, which is surprising. There's a lot of other advantages too, like basketball is easier and you have a better advantage in modeling. And you also tower over other people, which makes it less intimidating, especially when everyone around you is shorter. Even though I'm 5'11.2 and 1'7" the men are 6 feet tall, pretty much every single man I see is shorter than me. I know it's supposed to be 1'7", but it feels more like 1'25". I don't know where Google got that kind of data. If anything, it's a lot of inaccurate measurements or just a bunch of surveys. It's probably surveys because I know a lot of people overestimate height. Like, there's this one cousin I have, well, it's not a cousin, he's actually, their family is a friend of my family. And when I just recently came there, then we usually visit once a year, and when I came, they said I'd grown 4 inches taller from the last time I was there. It was actually only 2 inches. I overestimate my own height too. When I started 8th grade, I was only 5'10", and I thought I was 6'1". And then towards the end of the year, I thought I was 6'2". Then the doctors measured me. It turns out I'm only 5'11.2". So anyway, moving on. Even though it has a lot of advantages, as I said, there are some problems. So the first most notable and known problem about being tall is bumping your head on certain things. Bumping my head hasn't been that big of a problem, but there is actually like a sunroof, I don't know what it's called, like the kind of awning that comes down like sometimes by a trailer. That thing, I can hit my head on it if I don't duck. And it's not just my head, it's also my hand. If I'm ever doing anything like stretching from waking up or putting on a shirt, my hand can hit the ceiling fan. It once happened and that could lead to some bad things. Sometimes if you just do something like jump up, you can like hit your head on a ceiling fan or hit the lights, or you can hit your head on a door frame, which is why you have to be extra careful doing things like jumping inside of a small house or just anything with a decent sized roof. There's also trees too. We know that a lot of trees can have excess branches that grow about to your height if not lower, and when you get taller, there's even more that you have to avoid, so you have to be careful. Another problem about being so tall is that a lot of things aren't for your size. For example, chairs. If you see the way that I sit down, I can't properly sit in a chair anymore. Let me show you. If you guys see the way I'm sitting down right here, my legs are actually sort of rising up from the chair over here. My legs can only be completely flat on the chair if I put them down like this, if I put them extra forward, which can be bad in some cases, like in class, so that you don't want to trip anyone, so you have to be careful. There are other things that aren't your size too, like with showers. I always have to duck down in order to do something like rinse shampoo off my hair because the way that the shower comes down in the angle doesn't get to the top of my head. Then there's also sinks. I always have to crouch down to use sinks, which can be painful if you're doing something like hand washing clothes. I always used to hand wash my masks after school, and it would especially hurt my back. Luckily I just got the vaccine, I should be getting a second vaccine too. There's small cars too, like a Volkswagen Beetle or one of those cars that fit only 2 people are certainly going to be small for you. I actually haven't experienced that because I hardly ever ride in other people's cars. And the cars that I ride in usually aren't that small. Like one of those decently sized 4-person cars that have an oval-shaped roof. I actually don't know their name because I don't know much about cars. But those kind of cars I can just fit right into, luckily. Another problem, this problem actually comes depending on when you get to your height. I'm only 14 years old and I'm 5'11", and that's pretty unusual. Did you guys know that I was the tallest one in all of my 8th grade classes, and and I was the second tallest kid in the school. The tallest kid was like 6'1". For some reason, he was in 7th grade, which is surprising, really. But when you're that tall, you're towering over a lot of people, and your height is very unusual. There were some times where people just randomly make comments as I walk by like, oh my gosh, that kid is tall. It doesn't bother me that much, but you can see how it would annoy a lot of people and be really hard if you're like an introvert and then you're the one that's just towering over almost every single kid at the school. It would be hard. I get comments from other people too, not just in class. There was this one time this little kid just commented on how big I was, and whenever I'm at church or any place with other people I know, they often make comments that say like how tall I've been getting and all this. Whenever I meet someone after a while, they're like surprised at how much tall I've gone. If I'm meeting somebody that I haven't seen in years, they go crazy. There's this one guy I don't think I've seen ever since I ended 5th grade. At some point I met him again in the middle of my 8th grade year, and he was just like, oh my gosh, this guy grew, he used to be shorter than me. Yeah, he was like 5 inches taller than me last time I saw him, and then I'm now 5 inches taller than him. I don't know if it's been that much, but I know it's been quite a few years, and I've actually grown a lot since that time, so it probably has been. And then there's another problem, cost of food and clothing. When you're taller, you have to eat more so you can sustain the proper weight. Like when you're 5'11", your average weight, I believe it's actually 155 pounds, which is really heavy. I'm only 143 right now, and I'm not trying to get any fatter. Like, I don't want to look fat, really. I'm trying to keep my skinny look as much as I can. However, clothing is a problem too. A lot of clothing in stores aren't made for the proportions of someone as tall as you, so you're going to spend longer finding clothes. And then, they're also going to cost more. Unfortunately, the bigger clothing is always going to cost more because of the material. You have to wear larger size shoes and the larger clothing, that's just going to cost extra. And if you guys supposedly don't have a lot of money, if you've seen in thrift stores, there isn't a big selection of clothes, which is all but going to make it harder to find clothes. So if you're really tall, like 6'7" or higher, I wish you the best of luck. It's not going to be easy. Then there's sitting in crowds in classrooms. It is nice how you don't have to deal with somebody in front of you who's taller, and it's a lot less common, but then that means you have to sit in the back. Throughout my elementary school years, I was coincidentally always the one in the back. I didn't understand why, but now I realize that it's because that I was so tall. They don't want me blocking other kids. It's not that bad for me. For some reason I do prefer sitting in the front and I hate sitting in the back, but luckily I can see the board fine and I can hear the teacher fine. But if you have seeing and hearing problems, then that's just too bad for you. You're gonna be blocking other people's view, and that's just gonna be tough. Like, if you're not in the back, you have the guilt of blocking other people's view, and I just feel bad for everybody who has to end up behind me. That's why whenever I can, I'm always at the back of group photos, and I'm at the back of classrooms. It's just what you gotta do at a certain height like this. And now the last problem I have for this video is when people try telling you to do certain things, like play basketball or do modeling or do wrestling. You have an advantage, but it's not good when people force you to. There are several times people have told me to play basketball, like there's this 6'5" guy that was like telling me I have to play basketball. And then I have a next door neighbor who likes playing basketball. My mom keeps telling me to play with him because like I'm tall and everything. It's not what I want to do. I want to be a musician. Like, I'm not interested in basketball. And I don't think they understand that once you get taller, your bone structure gets worse too. Like, have you seen 7-foot basketball players? A lot of them have to, like, be more careful with their limbs when they run. And then the 8-foot people, a lot of those people use leg braces and canes. Talk about having an advantage in sports when you get tall. But really, you shouldn't force tall people to, like, do this kind of stuff. If you guys don't know, it actually annoys a lot of tall people to be asked like that, ask them if they play basketball and tell them to do it. So don't do it if you don't have to. And parents, please do not force your children to play basketball or anything like that. Let them pursue their own dreams, please. Now, being tall doesn't have a huge effect on my life. I mean, my life is virtually normal and these problems aren't that big, so I'm doing fine. And just remember, if you're short and feel insecure and wish you were a lot taller, just remember all of the things that you're missing out on that could always be worse. So just be yourself and be grateful for who you are. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do a lot of other vlogs and nice things on this channel. I have 2 other channels too. One where I play instruments and another where I do reviews on different items. They're featured in my channel section of my YouTube channel, so you should check them out if you want. Bye!